Baseball free agency is here the day after the World Series, and the Brewers have already signed somebody, one of their own. We'll get to that, and who might they also sign, and the whole national list is out, and a want list, but unfortunately the Brewers can't have some of these guys, but maybe a few others they could. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And a good Thursday to everybody. Welcome to Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Cutting this show late Thursday afternoon, where still no Craig Counsell news yet. Nothing has happened, but it's the day after the World Series. Arizona did not finish off and win it, dropping the final 3 games of that series. And so we move on. We move on to the offseason and what is going to be a busy offseason. We get the ball running. We get it running right away. Where there's no delay, no waiting to December, no waiting to the baseball owners' meetings, no waiting. We start the day after the season, and players are declaring free agency, and the Brewers have signed somebody already. Good to have you along. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you, everybody, for downloading us. Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major downloads we are. And, of course, on YouTube, our growing YouTube page, go to Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button by all means. Hit that little bell there. It's going to alert you every time we drop an episode. By the way, thanks for all the nice comments. Saw some nice comments on YouTube yesterday and so on. Got a letter. A letter. You don't get letters very often. A letter sent to my radio station. Thought it was about stuff I was doing for KFIZ, but it was about my Brewers podcast. I'm the sports director at KFIZ. But a big, long letter about how Mike Caldwell should be in the Walk of Fame, and I agree with him. We'll get to that a little bit later on here in the show. I'm surprised he's not. But free agency has begun with the Milwaukee Brewers. And by the way, find me on Twitter as well, Chuck Freeman, Freimund. Free agency has begun the day after the World Series. And there's a 5-day window until next Monday where the Brewers can talk to their own guys. And right now, they have signed one of their own guys, and of course, they're going to need pitching. This is kind of a Captain Obvious. Not surprised. They agreed to a contract, signed Colin Ray to a 1-year contract. There's an option for next year, the following season. But Colin Ray, nice season, pitched, was 6-6 this year, did a nice job, got called up back and forth to Nashville throughout the season. And when they needed a starter, when they needed a stopgap, a guy to come in and pitch a couple of innings and do some things, okay, on a moment's time, Colin Ray was that guy. Helped them out, especially early in the season. Middle of the season as well, Colin Ray, I like this move, okay? And you're probably going to need Colin Ray. Let's face it. He's going to vie for a spot in the rotation where going into the postseason, he was not, but down Brandon Woodruff, could be down Corbin Burns. That remains to be seen. But yeah, Colin Ray's 33 years old, and they signed him. Don't have the terms of the deal just yet, but they did sign Colin Ray. All right, now, some of these other guys who the Brewers have a 5-day window to sign in some cases. Jesse Winker, no. Carlos Santana, no. Eric Lauer, no. Victor Carantini, possibly. Julio Teheran, no. Alex Claudio, no. Darren Ralph, no. Josh Donaldson, certainly not. So those are a list of the free agents. Now, as far as club options, they have until November 6th, I believe, on these club options. So on the club options for Mark Canha, who I want back, the club option, there's a mutual option there for $11.5 million there. I would do it. I want Mark Canha as my first baseman as of right now, but I'd take him. I'd sign him and find a way to keep him on my team. Mark Canha is going to be 35 years old by the time the season starts next year. Can play multiple positions in the outfield. I still think, despite the age, I like him. I like Mark Canha on my baseball team. I've made it no secret whatsoever at all. He's the guy I want. Andrew Chafin, option $7.3 million. Absolutely not. Justin Wilson, absolutely not. No option there, nothing. But the rest of these guys, the unrestricted free agents, no. I'm assuming the Brewers are just going to set sail with these guys. And as far as free agency, playing in the free agent market, some of the guys are out there. Bellinger, Chapman, Blake Snell, Giolito, Sonny Gray. Brewers aren't in the market for any of those guys. Now, I'd love for them to be, but they're just not going to be because of the economics of baseball. Josh Hader is on that list. We'd love to have Hader, but our bullpen is fine. We got a couple of guys out there who are under team control, which you always got to look at, and the bullpen is just fine. Devin Williams, our closer, that's great. Still was against trading Josh last season, but he's an unrestricted free agent as of right now. Bellinger, some of you have messaged me about Bellinger. Sounds like he's going to get a substantial pay grade. He's got to turn himself around a little bit with the Cubs. Shohei, well, he's going to a major market, let's face it. Nola's another free agent out there. Assuming he doesn't re-sign with the Phillies. The Cardinals apparently are interested in him. A guy bad I'd be interested in is Justin Turner. Now he's defensively he's not very good. He's lost some speed on the base pass, but a guy you can stick into the DH spot and still can stick. I would love Justin Turner. I'd love to see them go out after him. Justin Turner is one guy I would love to see them go after. Heard his name linked with the Brewers in the past, obviously, but he's a guy. Obviously he's getting up in age, but I'd still take Justin Turner on the Brewers as a DH. Garrett Cooper. Now, he didn't break into the big leagues. He was 28. He's 33 already. 33 already. First baseman. Guy I'd think about it, first base for the Brewers. Okay, he's a guy I would think about, certainly. Because they're, Santana's on this list and they're not going to re-sign Santana. Cooper, a couple of years younger. One guy who, reading about who the Brewers could be interested and could be linked to is Tommy Pham. But he's 36 years old. Why are we, again, that's the kind of guys that the Brewers have to go after. Tommy Pham, 36, still can stick, do a few things as well. We've seen him in the postseason. But, God, I want to get younger. I feel like for instance, when the Brewers signed Lorenzo Cain a few years ago, when he was like 33, you knew toward the end of that contract, you were going to bite the bullet. He ended up getting released toward the end of it and you had to pay him. You had to give him a 5-year deal. But again, if you're going to get younger players, you're going to have to pay the piper. And guys like Tommy Pham, Justin Turner might be in their ballpark. But yeah, that's who I see. And we're going to see the Lucas Giolitos and maybe Sonny Gray, who, I know my former broadcast partner, Bart Winkler, loved Sonny Gray, wanted Sonny Gray at the Brewers all this time. And he's bounced around, I feel like, for every team but the Milwaukee Brewers. And it appears like it seems like the Cardinals are interested both in Sonny Gray and Aaron Nola. We also have to watch what the enemies are doing in this division because they're going to get better. They're going to get better, and you have to keep up with the Joneses here. You can't fall behind. You won the division, but the ESPN power ratings came out, and the Brewers are like 16th. The ESPN power ratings, the Brewers finished the season at 7th. Somehow, dramatically, they dropped from 7th to 16th. And I don't know, that's because the way their season ended, they're going to lose some guys. Maybe their manager. But right now, the Brewers are 16th going into the power ratings. I always feel like the Brewers outperform those anyway. But it could be some of the guys that they're losing and some of the holes. And because they were so reliant on their pitching this past season that they're out Brandon Woodruff. And possibly that could mean a sign that the folks, the baseball guys at ESPN feel that Corbin Burnes is going to be traded. It's on a conference call the other day with some of the guys from Locked On Brewers, the guy from Locked On Dodgers, don't know him from Adam, said, trade Corbin Burnes to us for some prospects. Again, people just want to come in, major markets. These guys just want to come in and pick off some of our players. But no, let's get a good load for Corbin Burnes and hopefully a veteran in return, maybe a guy who could play one of the corner spots for you. But I'm looking at the free agent list right now. Justin Turner. I'd like Justin Turner playing for the Milwaukee Brewers. These are the free agents, these unrestricted free agents who are with other teams. Turner, yeah. Would I love to have Sonny Gray? Of course. Blake Snell, yes. Nola, a no-brainer. But the Brewers aren't going to sell. They're not going to bid for those guys. They just aren't. Cody Bellinger, love to have him at first base. Is he the Cody Bellinger he once was? No. But he's better than he had been with the Dodgers. Get him off the Cubs. And Shohei, who wouldn't want Shohei? So that's the way it looks like right now through free agency. It starts on Monday. And some of these guys I mentioned, and maybe between now and then the Brewers sign a Carantini, but I don't see anybody else off this list of their free agents of Jesse Winker, Carlos Santana, Eric Lauer, Julio Teheran, Alex Claudio, Darren Ruff, Josh Donaldson. None of them. None of them. Maybe Mark Canha. But I don't see very many of them. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Brewers have some needs. Will Contreras up for the Silver Slugger Award. Nelson Cruz announces his retirement, the one-time Brewer. And we'll get to some of your tweets and letters as well. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Got to get down with FanDuel. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Baseball's cleared the way as far as betting is concerned. We can look ahead to the NBA. College basketball starting up next week. College football, of course, going on this weekend for a while there. For a couple of days, we had all four professional sports going on, but there's still plenty to get on. Right now, new customers get $100, $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. There's an NFL game coming up tonight. Pittsburgh and Tennessee. How about getting on that one? It's $150 if your team wins. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get on the action right now. There's so much going on. Again, college basketball for some of you daytimers out there. There's some daytime college basketball coming up. I think one thing that through COVID, some of these teams are playing like daytime college basketball during the week, which is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Hey, if Major League Baseball can play afternoon games during the week, why can't we have some afternoon games during the week? Maybe an NBA game or two, other than Martin Luther King Day. There's no afternoon baseball or basketball during the week. Let's get it in. Let's start doing that. But for college basketball, you can certainly get in on all the games with America's number one sportsbook. Spreads, player props, over and unders, all that. So if you've been thinking about joining the sports gambling circle, no better place to do it than FanDuel. No better place. Trusted, good people over there. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season and get on all the action and get that $150 in bonus bets with that winning $5 moneyline bet. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. This is Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're coming right back after this. Good to have you along. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Follow me along on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. And of course, follow us along on the YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers. All our downloads on the audio version, go to Locked On Brewers. We're the number one podcast, the Brewers podcast on the internet, because of you great Brewers fans out there. No news as of late Thursday, early Thursday night on Craig Counsell. Apparently, there's reports he's in New York today. There's in New York. Now, what that means, who knows? He's in New York. November 14th, the Manager of the Year announcement will be made. Could be that he's a manager for a different team, yet is going to win Manager of the Year with the Milwaukee Brewers. He could be announced between now and then as the manager of Cleveland or New York, yet be announced as Manager of the Year. And why wouldn't he be Manager of the Year? He deserves it. But to me, these postseason awards don't mean a heck of a lot for me, because we always win these postseason awards. We win MVPs. We win all these great postseasons awards, Coaches of the Year and all that, comeback players of the year, but we're lacking World Series championships. Speaking of that, with Texas winning the World Series, it was a painful graphic I saw on TV last night, and I knew it was coming. The Brewers are now one of 5 teams. They were one of 6, but now one of 5 teams with Texas winning to have never won a World Series. It's been, as you know, since, if you're watching me on YouTube, I'm holding up a Brewer cap. It says World Series 1986. I kept it in pretty prime form. And you could also see in the back of me here, I got the World Series program and the program from the American League Championship Series, both on my wall. And of course, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel from when they beat the California Angels. California Angels have changed their name twice since the Brewers last been in the World Series, but they beat the California Angels in the World Series back when the ALCS, when they were in the American League, was 5 games. But yeah, one of 5 teams who have not won a World Series so far. The Brewers are one of those 5 teams. And that's embarrassing. It really is. It speaks to how great the Brewer fans are. It speaks to how great the Brewers fans are, how you continue to support this team. All right. You run out there on a Sunday, on a Saturday night, go out there, drop a hat, 35,000 fans. 35,000 fans. Opening day sellout. Why? The Brewer fans. You keep coming out there, but yet we're heading up to 55 years now. And since 1982, next season will be 42 years. 42 years. People born in the 82 World Series are now middle-aged. The last time the Brewers have even been to the World Series. But they have not won the World Series. One of 5 teams. That goes down in professional sports as, just, it's dreadful. It's dreadful. It's a spot you don't want to be in. We keep getting our hopes up, thinking that this is going to be the year. Arizona got to the World Series. They've won World Series titles, and the Brewers have been in a franchise longer than them for like 23 years when Arizona come in. 93, I think it was. Yeah. So one of 5 teams who have not won the World Series, with Texas winning last night. Saw that graph, and it made me sick, to be honest with you. Disappointing. But I will say part of it has to do with the economics of baseball, but I'm not going to totally blame that. There's been some bad decisions along the way. We all know that. We can blame the economics of baseball, but this is on the Milwaukee Brewers. There's other teams that have won World Series championships, okay, who have been in dire straits as far as up against things. Okay, but the Brewers have not got it done. Now they're getting a bite of the apple, getting to the postseason, but now they're not even winning. They're not winning postseason series anymore. But they owe it to Brewer fans to get to the World Series and win a championship. Go down Wisconsin Avenue. Milwaukee has only had 1 World Series championship, and that was the 1957 Milwaukee Braves, way before I was born, way before most of us were born. Okay, some of you guys I know. You were teenagers and all that. Watch us. Yes, I understand that. But the 57 World Series, we love our Henry Aaron and Warren Spahn, Eddie Matthews. My dad has told me all the stories, but we got to get and win a World Series championship, just like the 57 Brewers did. And by the way, it was 49 years ago today that the Brewers acquired Henry Aaron. 49 years ago today that the Brewers acquired Henry Aaron for Dave May from the Atlanta Braves. Aaron played his final 2 years here in 1975 and 76. He was in his 40s. He was a guy that the Bud Selig brought in, hoping to draw some fandom into the old county stadium when the Brewers were bad, losing 90 games. Aaron finished out his career playing on 2 bad baseball teams. And I remember going to his final game in 1976. There were like 6,000 people at the game on a Sunday afternoon, early October, against the Detroit Tigers. And Aaron got a base hit in his final at bat. Jim Gantner came in and pinch ran for him, but there were 6,000. That would never happen. When you have a legend like Henry Aaron, if he was playing his final game with today's Milwaukee Brewers, they would draw 40,000. They did have a salute to Henry Aaron a few weeks before that on a Friday night, which they drew a good crowd. But yeah, 49 years ago today, the Brewers acquired Henry Aaron, made his second stop as a member of a Milwaukee baseball team, the previous, obviously, with those Braves teams. Will Contreras. When the season started, I would have never landed on Will Contreras being up for the Silver Slugger Award, but he is announced today. The award is going to be announced next week, but the best offensive player at your position, Surprising the Brewers have anybody qualifying for this, but Will Contreras is a candidate. The Brewers didn't pick him up for his bat, certainly, but he had a great year. He's a guy, as I've said, you couldn't take out of the lineup. When he wasn't catching, he was DHing and batting in that 2-hole and had some big hits. He was the offensive player of the year for the Brewers. Never would have guessed that. That would have been my long shot to win offensive player of the year. But congratulations, Will Contreras, a candidate for the Silver Slugger Award. We come back, talk about some tweets, get some other news regarding Craig Counsell and when this is going to happen. All that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your hosts. Hope you all are enjoying your off season so far. Baseball is done. Yeah. Couldn't help, but every time I watched the Arizona Diamondbacks on TV, I thought of the Milwaukee Brewers. I did. Be driving past AmFam Field on my way to do my state high school football show Friday night. And still, what sticks in my mind will be the 27 hours of Brewers postseason. Congratulations out to Nelson Cruz. Had a great career. The Brewers traded him in the 2000s. But yeah, Nelson Cruz, long career, productive career with many teams, but a guy who stood the test of time and played and could hit home runs to the very end. Always great to deal with Nelson Cruz. I enjoyed, he came back here to Milwaukee, always terrific with media. Congratulations on your next part of life after baseball. Nelson Cruz, the one-time Milwaukee Brewer, retiring today. Got a letter today. You don't get letters very often, and I appreciate somebody sent me a letter to KFIZ Radio where I'm the sports director. 20 years ago you would have got letters, but somebody took time to write me a letter, and I really appreciate that. I do. And it was a long 3-page letter about Mike Caldwell, Mr. Warmth, who won 22 games with the Brewers in 1978 and is not in the Walk of Fame for the Brewers. And this letter makes all sorts of cases, and he's absolutely right. Thank you, Andrew. Yes, Mike Caldwell. I will advocate for his inclusion. And he mentions Jim Slayton as well, another guy who had 2 tour of duties with the Milwaukee Brewers in the 70s and then late 70s. They got him back again, or it might have been early 80s because he was on the 82 Brewers team. Jim Slayton. Yes, Jim Slayton and Mr. Caldwell. But this letter went on length, that he won 2 postseason games with the Milwaukee Brewers. And yeah, he was Cy Young in 19. He should have been considered for the Cy Young. He should have probably won the Cy Young in 78. I think it was Ron Guidry that won the Cy Young in 1978 because he went like 25-3. So you had to give it to him in the American League. But Mike Caldwell, man, he had a real productive career and a part of those 78 to mid-80 Brewers teams. Yes, I would agree with you. I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Andrew from Janesville, I will say something. Mike Caldwell, and if you guys ever take time to write me a letter, don't think that they go unread. All your tweets and all your messages go read right here. And I appreciate you taking time and sending me the old-fashioned way a letter, Andrew from Janesville, and told me how much you love the podcast as well. Thank you very, very much. All right. A couple of club options the Brewers have. I mentioned Chafin and Canha. I did not mention Wade Miley. Could you agree to about an $8 million contract to bring Wade Miley back if he wants to come back? I know he's made some rumblings about retiring, but I'd love to have Wade Miley back on this team. The option would be for $10 million. I think Miley would be in for that. I'm not sure the club would be in for $10 million, but maybe you can agree on a lower price. Any case, I want Wade Miley back with my team next year. There's no doubt about it. Wade Miley. All right. So nothing's news on Craig Counsell so far. We're playing the waiting game here. And, it's been a few weeks. Now it's been about a week and a half now since the news broke about him and the Brewers getting permission to talk to them. Actually, Counsell getting permission from the Brewers and the Mets getting permission to talk to the Mets. So nothing has dropped here. We hear now that the Mets are talking to other candidates. Some other candidates, doing their due diligence and you have to in this business. You can't put everything in. For a while there, Counsell seemed to be the only candidate, but obviously David Stearns wants to talk to other guys in case this does not come forward. But we'll see. But I don't think Friday any news would be broken regarding Counsell, because the Mets are going to do this. They're going to do this. They're not going to do this on a news dump Friday, where, again, baseball teams, if they have some bad news, industries, some bad news, stock earnings that are going bad, people dump that on a Friday afternoon. Would be surprised if the Mets called a press conference on a Friday, because they're going to wait till the dust settles, possibly like on a Tuesday, working around. They're not going to let this news, either team, I would think, Cleveland or the Mets, let this news be broken. When now one of the insiders could break it, but they will not announce a press officially, I would think, until like next week. If they're going to do something, they'll wait to the NFL and the college football, which takes stage this weekend. They're not going to let this get lost, because if the Mets are going to make an announcement, they're going to want to showboat about it. And I would think they would do it after the football weekend. It's going to do it for me, Chuck Freeman. We'll keep you posted, everybody. We will. So the Brewers did sign a player today. We told you about that earlier here in the show. Colin Ray to a 1-year contract, the option for a following year as well. Good signing. Not surprising. We're all on board with it, because Lord knows the Brewers are going to need some starting pitching possibly going into next season. Everydayers out there, thanks for following me along all the time. I appreciate you. Great comments as well. Spotify, Apple, all the great places, Amazon, you get us everywhere. Yet we drop an episode on Locked On Brewers. And of course on YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, find me there, and then hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. Of course, follow me on Twitter. Always love to hear what you great Brewer fans have to say. Should be a busy week next week when free agency hits. We'll see what the rumblings are with the Milwaukee Brewers. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. So long, everybody.